Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you. You ain't heard nothing.
Hello and welcome to a presentation of the Nimrod Book Tag. This tag was created by my dear booktube friend Matthew at Mayberry Book Club, who tagged me. See the link to his video in the show notes below. He asked us to discuss books that made you feel stupid. For this prompt I've chosen A Beautiful Mind by Sylvia, Nasar, which can represent every book that I have ever read dealing with scientific subjects such as physics, mathematics, chemistry and the like. Whenever I read about the geniuses who are able to understand these subjects, I'm thrown into despair at the mediocre intellectual grasp that I have of these subjects. Or whenever my wife tries to explain to me some abstruse point of biochemistry, which is her specialist subject, and I don't understand it. I feel like an idiot, and what is worse, she agrees. Another type of book which is typical of the mystery genre that makes me feel inadequate and stupid that I read recently is The Silent World of Nicholas Quinn by Colin, Dexter. The plot is so complex and labyrinthine that it left me reeling with stupidity. The second prompt is books you wanted to love but couldn't. I loved David Copperfield when I read it, but practically every other book I've read by Dickens has been a disappointment. In particular, Bleak House, which is the last novel I read by Dickens. I wanted to love this novel because I'd heard that it was his masterpiece, and John Mortimer, one of my favourite authors, lists Bleak House as one of 10 books that are important to him in The Pleasure of Reading, edited by Antonia, Fraser. I thought that Bleak House alternated between moments of brilliance and often incomprehensible circumlocution. In general, I detest Dickens' style of writing and his grotesque imagination. Prompt number 3 is books you wanted to hate but couldn't. I don't think I've ever picked up a book that I intended to hate before reading it, so I pass on to the next prompt. The fourth prompt asks books you no longer enjoy. I have reread 4 books in recent months that I enjoyed reading the first time, but now that I have read them again, do not find them as enjoyable as I once thought they were. The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. It is simply written and easy to read. I thought it had an interesting premise, but was not very well executed, and the characters were not very interesting or likeable. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I thought this was a book of 2 halves. The first half was exciting and the second half was more descriptive and therefore less interesting. The Code of the Woosters by P.G.Wodehouse. I thought it was cleverly plotted but was trivial and unfunny. Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. This is an important and essential American classic, but I was just not enamoured of it the second time round. Prompt number 5 asks books that won you over on rereading. I very rarely reread books that I've not enjoyed the first time, so I pass on to the next prompt. Prompt 6 asks books you love by a writer you dislike as a person. H.G. Wells has written some very interesting, enjoyable and groundbreaking novels such as The Time Machine, The Invisible Man and The War of the Worlds, but he was not a very nice person. He was a very talented writer who should have stuck to novel writing instead of pontificating and making himself into an all-round unpleasant person. Books you dislike by a writer you like as a person. In France in 1848, Victor Hugo was elected to the National Assembly of the Second Republic as a Conservative. In 1849, Hugo gave a noted speech calling for the end of misery and poverty. Other speeches called for universal suffrage and free education for all children. Hugo's advocacy to abolish the death penalty was renowned internationally. and I thought The Toilers of the Sea was superb, so I was hugely disappointed when I recently attempted to read Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. There is a marvellous story hidden in these pages, but Hugo's penchant for inserting essays into the narrative destroyed my enjoyment of this novel. If they had anything to do with the story and actually drove the plot forward, then they would have been acceptable, but the long descriptive passages merely held up the thrilling story that Hugo had to tell and produced a dreary feeling of boredom. Finally, prompt number 8 asks, books you still want to love one day. Persuasion by Jane Austen. When I read it in July 2018, I could not get a clear conception of the characters and did not like them. I thought the story was uninteresting and the writing was dull and unexciting. And I DNF'd Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. I've watched videos by other booktubers who have praised this novel, so I may have missed the point. And after reading A Jane Austen Education by William Deresiewicz, I want to try both novels again, as I think I may have misunderstood Austen's intentions with these novels, and I think that on a second reading I may appreciate them more. I'm going to tag everyone who watches this video who hasn't already been tagged, so you are tagged. And now here's a quick recap, and I'll be back soon with another BookTube video.